Marcus Johnson was a man of principles, dedicated to his work. He was the police officer of Millbrook, the small town where he was born and raised. A tiny town where everyone knew each other, narrow streets, and rows of charming houses. But Marcus was not just a police officer. He was a man who had lost his beloved wife 3 years ago. Since that day, everything had changed. Though he continued his daily work, always present when the townspeople needed him, deep inside, an emptiness lingered. A loneliness that nothing seemed to fill. A man, a cop, yet lacking the connection of family. Then, one early morning as Marcus was returning to the station after his patrol, a siren blared from the radio, cutting through his thoughts that had been lingering all morning. We have an emergency situation at 1456 Elm Street. Possibly a case of child abandonment. Immediate intervention required. He stepped on the gas, and his patrol car raced down the empty street. But inside Marcus, a heavy, strange feeling was growing. Something told him that today would not be like any other day. When the car came to a stop in front of the old house, the headlights illuminated his face, casting a glow over the trees and the peeling walls of the house. The door was ajar, but there were no signs of life inside. Silence. But then, a faint cry echoed from within, making Marcus' heart tighten. He stepped out of the car, hearing the cry growing louder, like a desperate call for help from the depths of the house. "We are the police. Is anyone home?" Marcus called out, but there was no response. He didn't hesitate, heading toward the open door and entering the house. Upon entering, Marcus could hardly believe his eyes. 6 children, from infants to teenagers, huddled in a corner of the dark room. Their eyes were swollen, filled with fear and confusion, staring at Marcus like they had never seen him before. The youngest was sobbing uncontrollably, while the older children sat silently, completely powerless. They didn't understand what was happening. There was no one in the house, and no one in the town seemed to know about them. They only knew one thing. Their parents had gone out and hadn't returned. "It's okay. I'm here now. I'll help you," Marcus said, his voice warm, trying to soothe the fear surrounding them. He knelt down, looking into the eyes of each child. A girl, around 12 years old, with bright eyes but full of worry, approached him. We've been waiting for our parents to come back, but they didn't," she said, her voice breaking. We don't know what to do." Marcus felt the immense fear in her voice. It struck him like a punch to the heart. But her pain wasn't just the loss of a parent. It was the deep, desperate loneliness of not knowing what to do or where to go. The parents of these 6 children had left the house that morning without saying goodbye. They might have gone out to handle some errands or just to run simple errands. But on their way back, a tragic accident occurred. The accident claimed the lives of both parents. And since this family had just moved to Millbrook a few months ago, no one knew about their relatives or extended family. The children couldn't contact anyone, and the people in the neighborhood only knew the family in passing. They had no one but themselves. When the Child Protective Services workers arrived, they quickly began discussing the possibility of placing the children in different foster homes. However, Marcus felt a strong compulsion in his heart. He made a decision that could not be undone. "Wait," Marcus said, his voice firm. "If someone is going to adopt them, I will do it. I will take them." The room fell silent, all eyes on Marcus. Both the child protection workers and the others present were shocked by his bold decision. Linda, the head of the Child Protection Services, approached. "Do you understand what this means?" Linda asked, her tone gentle but serious. "You are a black man in a predominantly white town. These children, they are white. You will face a lot of challenges, both culturally and from prejudice. Are you ready for that?" Marcus looked Linda straight in the eye, without hesitation. "I understand," he replied, "but I can't let them live in loneliness anymore. I will be their father. and I will do everything I can to make them feel loved. From that moment on, Marcus was no longer just a police officer. He was the new father of 6 children. This decision not only changed the lives of the children, but also marked a pivotal moment in his own life. Though there was no preparation, no plan, he had made a decision that he knew could not be undone. Now, Marcus would face many challenges. He wouldn't just face the difficulties of taking care of 6 children, but also the opposition, prejudice, and doubtful looks from the community. But one thing he knew for sure, love was the only thing he could offer, and that was the only thing that could fill the gaps in the lives of these 6 children. In the early days after Marcus brought the 6 children into his home, he didn't just feel the change within himself, but also in the quiet space of the small house, where everything seemed to be waiting for the arrival of a new family. This house, once filled with memories of his life with his late wife, had now become an entirely different space. The cries of the youngest child, the soft quarrels of the older kids, the quick footsteps running through the rooms, all of this painted a lively picture that Marcus had never imagined. As he stepped into the living room, Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of unfamiliarity. He had once lived here alone, but now the house seemed to be filled with the presence of 6 children. Emma, the oldest daughter, sat curled up on the couch, her gaze still dazed and full of worry. She looked at the objects around her, as if they were all new and unfamiliar. But Emma's eyes, despite their strength, couldn't hide the loneliness, the need for a place to belong. She didn't know if she was truly a part of this family, or if Marcus was really the father she wanted. Lily, the artist sister, sat by the window, gazing outside with dreamy eyes. She always kept a personal space for herself, a space where she could draw images full of creativity, where there were no distinctions, no differences between skin colors or backgrounds. Lily still couldn't believe her life had changed, that the paintings she created were no longer just her own dreams, but also the dreams of the family she had just joined. Ben, the cheerful boy with messy hair, tried to maintain a strong demeanor. But in his eyes, Marcus could see fear. Fear that he would never truly fit into this family. Fear that he would always remain a stranger in his own home. Ben just wanted to find something familiar, something he could hold on to for himself. Mia, the bookworm, was still absorbed in the pages of her book, constantly following the stories she longed to be a part of. However, deep inside, Mia felt like she would never truly belong to this story. She couldn't figure out how to fit in, and sometimes she felt like an outsider in her own family. Charlie, the boy with an easy smile, tried to be the peacekeeper of the family. But even Charlie couldn't hide the lack of affection he was feeling. He always worried whether his adoptive father would truly understand the struggles he was going through, whether Marcus could really be a true father, or if he was simply fulfilling an obligation. Finally, there was Sophie, the youngest, whose innocent eyes made Marcus' heart soften every time he looked at her. Sophie was only 4, but her intelligence and sensitivity surprised everyone. She could sense the difference in the way the other children interacted with their adoptive father. She didn't fully understand the challenges their family was facing, but she could feel the love Marcus had for all his children. Each child had their own story, their own worries, and all of them wanted to be loved, to feel that they were truly part of this family. But in Marcus' eyes, they were all his children. He didn't just want to protect them. He wanted to be the father each child deserved. The days passed, each one bringing a new challenge. Marcus began to realize that becoming a father wasn't as simple as he had imagined. He not only needed to nurture these children physically, but he also had to nourish their souls, help them rebuild their trust and hope in a real family. Every step he took had to be careful, because he didn't want to do anything wrong. There were nights when everything was quiet, and Marcus would sit in the living room, looking at the children sleeping peacefully. His heart was filled with anxiety. Would he be able to play his role well? Would the children accept him as their father? Would the love he had for them be enough to heal the deep wounds in these children's hearts? One morning, as the whole family gathered around the breakfast table, Emma suddenly spoke up. Can we not call you Dad? I don't think I can call you that. All eyes turned to Emma. Marcus wasn't angry or hurt. He smiled gently and said, That's okay. But I just want you to know that I'm here for you. And I will do everything I can to be your father, no matter what you call me. Lily, with a drawing in hand, unexpectedly spoke up. Then can we call you our protector? The whole family laughed, and Marcus felt a sense of relief. That was the first moment he felt like he wasn't an outsider anymore. He was part of this family, a special family he had never imagined. As days went by, the bond between Marcus and the children grew deeper. Each smile, each handshake, each gesture of affection from him changed the way the children saw him. Marcus was no longer a stranger in this house. He was their father, their protector, their brother. And the miracle was, Marcus realized that not only had he changed, but the children had changed too. They no longer felt alone. They no longer felt like outsiders in their own family. Looking into the faces of each child, Marcus knew that he had a family, an imperfect family, but full of love, trust, and hope. And this was truly what he needed, what he would protect for the rest of his life. The first day Marcus and the 6 children stepped into their new home, everything felt filled with unfamiliarity. The air inside was strange, empty. Even though they all now shared a roof, it seemed like no one truly felt like they were part of the family. The children, each carrying their own fears, had questions lingering in their minds. Would this truly be the place where they belonged? Emma, the oldest daughter, couldn't hide the tension on her face. Though she didn't speak, there was a constant hint of skepticism in her eyes. She couldn't easily accept a stranger as her father, especially when he wasn't like any of the fathers she had known before. During their first meal together, Emma didn't look at Marcus at all, as if trying to find some sign that this was just a temporary situation, a short-term solution. She ate only a few bites before leaving the table, heading straight to her room, not responding when Marcus called her name. Lily, the artistic girl, sat quietly, her eyes fixed on the unfinished painting on the table. She said nothing, but felt an overwhelming sense of estrangement. To Lily, the world around her seemed to be sinking into darkness, with no solid ground to stand on. She didn't know what to do and couldn't shake the feeling that her paintings, her small dreams, would never fit into this new life. Ben, the boy with the tough exterior, sat near the window, staring outside, but his mind wasn't there. Though he didn't say it, Ben felt like he was standing at a crossroads. Part of him wanted to believe that this was his home, that Marcus was his father. But another part was afraid that he would never be accepted, that he would never truly belong in this family. Meanwhile, Mia, the girl with the bright eyes, often tried to avoid contact with others. She would sneak into the corners of the house, absorbed in her books, but deep inside, her soul was in turmoil. Unable to connect with the other children, unable to find herself in such a diverse and unfamiliar family, Mia felt an emptiness that couldn't be filled. Charlie, the boy who always tried to mediate every conflict, stood in the middle trying to keep everything together. But even his patience had its limits. He wanted to feel like he was a part of this family, but the more he tried, the more he felt like an outsider. He found himself stuck between the conflicts of his father and his siblings, unsure of what to do to keep everything from falling apart. Then there was Sophie, the youngest, small and innocent, who didn't yet understand everything going on around her. However, Sophie started to notice the differences between herself and the other children. She didn't understand why people looked at Marcus with such unfamiliar eyes. But what made Sophie feel at ease was seeing Marcus always by her side whenever she needed him, whether it was when she was scared or just needed someone to hug. Things didn't look promising. The children each carried their own fears. Their doubts were not easily erased. Marcus, despite his determination to be a good father, couldn't escape his own feelings of insecurity. He realized that adopting these 6 children wasn't just a responsibility. It was a monumental challenge. A challenge that, no matter how hard he tried, couldn't avoid the pain and conflicts arising from the significant differences in skin color, culture, and lifestyle. But Marcus didn't give up. He knew that love wasn't something that could be built overnight. He had to be patient. He had to understand. He had to show these 6 children that they weren't facing the world alone, and that he would always be there, protecting them, no matter what the world was like. One Monday morning, when things in the family started to stabilize, Marcus decided it was time for a heartfelt conversation with the children. He wanted to help them understand that this family would have no limits, that love was the only thing that could bind everything together. With a cup of tea in his hand, Marcus invited all the children into the living room, which had now become their shared space, where everything in their lives would be talked about. "We are not a perfect family," Marcus said softly, but with determination. "But I will do everything I can to make sure you all feel like you belong here." He paused, looking at each child. "No matter how many challenges we face, I promise you that I will always be here, and we will overcome everything together." Although not everyone spoke, Marcus could feel something was changing from the look in their eyes. Emma, though still trying to act strong, looked into his eyes and gave a slight nod. Ben smiled a strange smile, but the tension in him seemed to ease just a little. Lily, though still silent, no longer avoided Marcus's gaze. That small feeling of change was enough to renew Marcus's faith, to make him realize that no matter how long it would take, this family would be complete, not because of perfection, but because of unconditional love. From that moment on, life in the family started to change. No more suspicious glances, no more words full of doubt. Instead, there was the effort of each family member, step by step, to bridge the gap. Marcus was no longer just the father of the children. He had become their companion, their protector, and their teacher. And for the 6 children, although they knew the road ahead would be full of challenges, they had learned a valuable lesson. Family isn't just where there's blood, but where there is love, care, and trust. Although Marcus's integration with the 6 children gradually made some progress, it was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey. A family, unlike any other, was being built from pieces full of differences: race, culture, pasts, and individual pains. The difficulties began to surface as daily life started to stabilize, and Marcus realized that love alone was not enough. One windy morning, as the first light of day filtered through the thin curtains, Marcus walked into the living room. He found Emma sitting alone on the sofa, staring out the window. She didn't speak, but Marcus could tell she was thinking about the struggles she had been through, struggles that he couldn't fully understand. Emma hadn't yet accepted the sudden change in her life, and she wasn't easily ready to give her heart to Marcus, no matter how hard he tried. "Emma," Marcus called gently, approaching and sitting beside her. "What are you thinking about?" Emma turned to look at him, her gaze like a solid wall that no one could break through. "We're not a real family," she said, her voice filled with loneliness and pain. "You can't understand what we've been through, what we've lost." Marcus sat in silence, not knowing what to say. Emma's words cut deep into his heart. She was right. He couldn't fully understand what she felt. He couldn't comprehend the deep loss she and the others had endured. But he still wanted to try. He wanted to give them a real family. He knew that even if it was just a small step, The love he had for them could become the foundation they needed to build their lives. For Lily, the artist, what she drew wasn't just pictures. It was unfulfilled dreams. She painted scenes of a family where there was no division, where everyone could find empathy and understanding. But when she looked at her own family, all she saw were differences. Why can't we be like other families? She wondered. Why can't I paint a perfect picture? One evening, when the family was sitting down to dinner, a strange silence settled over them. Ben, the tough boy who always hid his underlying fears, frowned every time Marcus tried to talk about the difficulties of raising the children. Ben had emotions he couldn't express. Dad, do you even understand? You may be a great cop, but you're not our father. You don't know what we've been through. Ben's words pierced Marcus's heart, leaving him stunned. Marcus knew that no matter how much love he gave, how hard he tried, that love couldn't erase the deep scars the children had inside them. For Mia, the bookworm, everything became even more complicated. Mia always turned to books to escape reality, to find a world she could control. But every time she put a book down, reality came rushing back, and Mia couldn't escape the feeling of being abandoned again. Why do we have to do all this? Mia silently asked herself. Why can't we just live like this without changing anything? Meanwhile, Charlie, the lively boy always trying to mediate between the other children, felt torn. Charlie wanted his siblings to understand that even though Marcus wasn't like their biological father, he was still their father, the only one willing to stay. Charlie couldn't understand why they couldn't see the love Marcus clearly showed for all of them. He felt like he was trying alone to hold the family together, but his efforts didn't seem to be enough. And then there was Sophie, the youngest, with small questions full of a desire to feel true love. Sophie hadn't fully grasped the complexity of this new family, but she could sense the changes in her heart. She understood that the love Marcus gave wasn't always easy to show. Sophie still naively believed that love could heal all wounds, but the older children had taught her that sometimes love alone wasn't enough. One night, after the children had gone to bed, Marcus sat in the living room, staring at the old family picture that showed him and his late wife. At that moment, he felt more than ever the pain of not only losing his wife, but the absence of a complete family. Could he fill that emptiness? Could he become the father these children needed? One night, after the whole family had gone to sleep, Marcus entered the children's rooms. He looked at each face, each child asleep, and his heart tightened when he saw the pain still lingering in their eyes. He walked over, sat beside Emma's bed, and gently stroked her hair. "I'm not perfect," Marcus whispered, "but I'll do everything I can to become the father you need." In the days that followed, Marcus became busier with work, but he started spending more time with the children. He didn't want to just be a father in name. He wanted to be a friend, a teacher, a protector that they could trust. He made time to listen, to share, and sometimes simply to sit in silence with the children as they navigated their emotional storms. And slowly, something miraculous began to happen. Each day, the family drew closer together. Every step Marcus took brought hope, small but enough to keep their love standing strong. For Marcus, these difficult days were just part of the journey. He knew that love could be the key, but it needed time, patience, and determination to make everything real. And although the children couldn't immediately see him as their father, Marcus was willing to wait, because he knew that love, no matter how hard, would eventually find its way. Millbrook, with its peaceful streets and quaint houses lined up side by side, is a place where everyone knows each other, where the lives of families are well known. This community is not easily accepting of differences, especially when those differences come from a black man with 6 white children. Although Marcus has a firm belief in family, love, and protection. As a black police officer in a predominantly white town, everything was far from simple for him. One sunny morning, Marcus stood outside a small coffee shop in town, holding a hot cup of coffee, looking into the distance. He had always felt safe with his colleagues and friends, the ones he had known through his time working here. But now, as the father of 6 white children, he knew that he would face far greater challenges than investigating complicated cases. Emma and the others were not easily integrating into life in Millbrook, although Marcus tried to create a loving environment in their home. As soon as his children stepped outside, they were placed into situations that made them feel out of place. Strange looks from neighbors, uncomfortable questions from friends, all created a gap that was hard to fill. The community had never seen a family like theirs. Something unfamiliar was forcing them to think. One morning, when Marcus took the children to school, they could not avoid the sharp difference they felt. Ben walked with Marcus, but inside, he was filled with anxiety. Some of the looks from other students seemed filled with suspicion and prejudice. Mia, with her ever-bright eyes, suddenly seemed clouded as she noticed her classmates whispering, pointing fingers at her. The gossip started to rise, not from ignorant children, but from the adults in the town, those who were unwilling to accept this difference. On Emma's first day back in class, her teacher looked at her with a different expression. Though no words were spoken, Emma could clearly feel that her presence was making many people uneasy, especially in her classroom, where children had grown up in the familiarity of a predominantly white community. It would likely be difficult to accept a black girl, even if she had been adopted by a black father. As Emma walked into the class, she overheard murmurs around her. Why does she have a father like that? Or, who is this girl? And why is she living with a black man? These unspoken questions were not just Emma's story, but Marcus's too. A story of a father trying his best to be a real father to his children, whether the community accepted it or not. Meanwhile, Marcus stood outside the school, his eyes gazing off toward the row of classrooms. He knew these children would face not just the struggles within their family, but also resistance from the outside world. They would need to learn how to face prejudice, doubt, and above all, how to prove that the love he had for them was real and nothing could break it. The next day, when Marcus took the children to the market to shop, he encountered the community's reaction firsthand. Mrs. Thompson, an older woman in town, approached Marcus. "Marcus," she said with a firm tone, "I don't know what you're doing, but you can't raise those children. You're not like them. You can't give them a normal life." She didn't shout, but her words were like daggers to Marcus's heart. This wasn't just a casual conversation. It was direct opposition from a part of the community Marcus had spent years protecting. Mrs. Thompson's words reflected the rejection, the discrimination Marcus had feared all along. And all of this was now being projected onto his children. Children who didn't yet understand the world and were simply seeking a place where they could feel loved without having to prove anything. However, Marcus didn't let those words stop him. He looked Mrs. Thompson in the eye and replied, "I understand what you're saying, but I've chosen these children. I've chosen them, and I will raise them as my own. No one can change that." Immediately afterward, Marcus felt a heavy loneliness. He knew that, despite his strong resolve, the acceptance of this community was a far more difficult challenge than ever before. The big question always rang in his head. Could he protect these children? Could they find a place to belong when the world outside built a wall against their differences? The whole family continued to face resistance, not only from those around them, but also from within the community. However, Marcus refused to back down. He began searching for ways to change people's perceptions, starting with small but meaningful conversations. He attended community meetings where people could share their stories and experiences. He went to the homes of those who had opposed him, listening and understanding so that they could learn more about his family. Each conversation, each meeting wasn't an immediate change, but it helped Marcus realize that if he remained patient and sincere, people would slowly change their perspectives. This community might not be ready right away, but with his love and determination, Marcus believed they would eventually see his family as a symbol of true love, not based on race, not based on the past, but as a powerful choice to love each other. Marcus' family life with the six children was no longer a series of meaningless days, dragging on with exhaustion. The challenging first months gradually passed, and in that space, love began to weave the strongest and most solid bond between them. But more importantly, it was the resilience and strength they created from their hardships and challenges that helped them become a real family, a family not born of blood, but of choice and patience. Marcus vividly remembers that day when he walked into the house after a long, tiring day at work. The house, though not large, was filled with the laughter of six children. Ben was sitting on the floor playing basketball with Charlie, both of them happily competing for each shot. Mia sat at the dining table, engrossed in her favorite book. Meanwhile, Emma and Lily, after a long period of tension, had finally found a way to talk and share their dreams with each other, no longer silent and cold as before. When Marcus entered, each child turned around and looked at him with eyes full of trust. They no longer saw him as a stranger, but as an irreplaceable part of their lives. That was the moment Marcus knew he had succeeded in building a family, no matter how difficult the circumstances. He was no longer just a black man in a predominantly white town. He was a father, the father these children needed, not because of race or origin, but because of the love and protection he continuously offered them. The whole family had weathered the storms, the prejudiced glances from the community, and the doubts from the children themselves. But they had made it. Sophie, the youngest, began to look at the world with more openness. Despite being only 4 years old, her eyes could see the sacrifices her father made, the love Marcus gave to everyone in the family. She wasn't just a daughter, but an essential part of this journey, a source of motivation that helped Marcus hold onto his faith. The older children also started to change. Emma, once full of doubt, now opened her heart more. She no longer felt alone in this house, and she began to realize that even though he wasn't her biological father, Marcus was the father she had always wanted. When she looked into Marcus' eyes, she no longer saw worry or a lack of affection, but instead saw security. She knew that no matter what happened, Marcus would always protect and love her, as well as her siblings. For Lily, the change was just as powerful. She no longer hid in her paintings or in her isolated thoughts. She realized that a family wasn't something that could be perfectly drawn, but something built from real moments. And it was Marcus who taught her that love is something that can transcend all boundaries, all differences. Ben and Charlie, the young boys, finally realized that their adoptive father's love wasn't just a responsibility. It was an unconditional sacrifice. The two began to share things with each other that they couldn't voice to Marcus. "Do you see it, Charlie? Marcus is like a hero," Ben said. "He's not only protecting us, but also giving us a reason to believe in the good things in life." For Mia, the bookworm, she slowly found comfort in this family. Although the stories in her books couldn't entirely replace reality, the lessons from daily life helped Mia understand that family is the only place where she can find peace and happiness. "Dad," she whispered one day when Marcus entered her room, "thank you for bringing us to this family. I don't think I'll find a better place anywhere else." The whole family, though still facing challenges, had learned to face them together. The unkind words from the community, the scrutinizing glances, no longer frightened them. Marcus and the children knew that the love they shared could never be shaken. Day by day, the children grew up not with anxiety and fear, but with a strong belief in Marcus' unconditional love and protection. The challenges they had overcome had deepened their bond, and no matter what the future held, they knew they would always be there for each other because this was their family. The surrounding community began to notice this. The prejudiced looks gradually gave way to acceptance. People couldn't deny that this family, despite its differences, held tremendous strength. These children, although not biological relatives, could live happily in a real family. And Marcus, the black man, with his challenging past, had proven that love could transcend all boundaries and barriers that life placed before them. The strength of Marcus' family lay not in perfection, but in resilience and the ability to love unconditionally, no matter how difficult things were around them. It was these qualities that helped them overcome everything. If there is one word to describe Marcus and his six children's family, it would be transformation. From the early days filled with difficulties and challenges, when they faced discrimination, doubt, and unanswered questions, this family overcame it all. And now, as things began to settle down, those children, who once seemed entirely different from each other, have become a real family, strong and united, full of laughter and love. Marcus remembers that bright summer afternoon when all his children were sitting around the dining table, laughter echoing throughout the house. Emma, his eldest daughter, has now found joy in taking care of the younger ones, no longer keeping her distance like in the early days. She is not just a grown-up sister, but a companion to Marcus, always by his side in tough times. She has also learned to open up and no longer feels lost in this family. Lily, the art-loving girl, has now become a resilient, confident young woman. Her paintings are no longer just a way to escape the world. They are reflections of the journey her family has been through. In every stroke, Lily expresses not only creativity, but also strength and determination to overcome adversity. She learned that love not only makes everything beautiful, but also helps people become more resilient in life. Ben and Charlie, after many months of hesitation and doubt, have finally found themselves in this family. Ben, with his deep soul, now proudly claims Marcus as his father, understanding that even if society does not see him as a real father, to him, Marcus is the father he needs. And Charlie, with his innate liveliness, has now become the one who always smiles, ready to help the younger ones and support Marcus in everything. The integration of the two boys has become a clear testament to how love and patience can heal all wounds. Especially Mia, the girl who was always immersed in books, now begins to share her stories with the younger ones. No longer alone as before, Mia has learned how to connect and find comfort in her family. She has started to understand that love is not just fairy tales and books, but genuine actions and moments of love that they share together. And Sophie, the youngest, is the hope and endless joy of the family. Sophie may not fully understand everything happening around her, but the love she receives from her father and siblings makes her realize one thing: family is the only place where she truly belongs. She is not only the youngest in the house, but also a powerful source of motivation for everyone, reminding all that love is something that needs to be protected and nurtured. Marcus' family life is no longer a series of anxious days, but has become a journey filled with laughter, games, and endless conversations. They have turned this house into a true home, where everyone can find love and support, no matter what difficulties they face in life. One beautiful evening, as the whole family gathered around the dinner table, Marcus looked up and saw each of his children. He realized that despite going through tough challenges, they still stood strong and faced them together. This family is not just a blend of different people, but the result of a resilient journey of love that never gives up. With Emma, The girl no longer doubts about the family. She has learned how to trust and love, not because of perfection, but because that is the most important thing Marcus has taught her. Lily, through each painting, each story, has found her place. Ben and Charlie now have learned that, although there is no blood relation, real love is what truly creates a strong connection. Mia, the girl who grew up in books, is now no longer running away from reality, but facing it with an open heart. And Sophie, with her innocent smile, is always the reason for the family to persevere, living life fully. On Emma's graduation day, Marcus sat in the audience, his eyes following his daughter as she walked up to the stage to receive her diploma. That was the moment Marcus knew that this family, though it began with differences, had succeeded. Emma was not just a graduate, but a living testament to the power of love, a living proof that a family does not necessarily have to come from blood, but can be built from sacrifice, perseverance, and unconditional love. And as Marcus' children step into their own paths, Marcus feels happiness overflowing in his heart. He has raised them not just with food and shelter, but with real values in life. This family is not just the result of one great decision, but the culmination of moments filled with sacrifice and love. In the end, Marcus knows that no matter where life takes him and his children, the love they have for each other will never change. This is their family, a true family, not because of perfection, but because of enduring love, a love that helped them rise from difficulties to live a complete, happy life. If there was one moment that Marcus felt his life truly changed, it was the day he decided to establish the Marcus Foundation, an organization not just to help abandoned children, but to create a legacy, a mark of the love and sacrifice he had endured, and most importantly, to ensure that his family's story would not just be theirs alone, but would spread and change many other lives. That day, when Marcus sat in his office, looking out the window, he didn't just see the familiar streets of Millbrook. He saw before him a long road he had chosen. Emma, Lily, Ben, Charlie, Mia, and Sophie. The six children who had become indispensable parts of his life, each carrying their own story, a past, and a future Marcus wanted to help them build. But he knew that the legacy he wanted to create wasn't just to set an example for his children, but to change the perception of family, love, and community acceptance. However, it wasn't an easy decision. The opposition from people in the community, the skepticism from family members, made Marcus question himself many times. Could he maintain and grow an organization that not only needed financial support, but also required unwavering determination and a clear vision? Could his children stand strong enough to help him build this legacy? Would what he had done have lasting meaning? Or would it be just an unattainable dream? The answer came from his very own children. One autumn day, when the family was gathered in the living room, Marcus looked into each child's eyes, and he knew, no matter what the world was like, they had each other. Emma, now grown and a model in the community, shared with Marcus her passion for helping children. Lily, the artistic girl, had become an art instructor, offering free art classes for underprivileged children. Ben and Charlie, now grown men, had started a community cafe, providing jobs for disadvantaged teens. Mia no longer just wrote about mythical stories, but now wrote books about overcoming life struggles. And Sophie, the girl with an open heart, had become an inspiration for local children, helping them understand that no matter where they came from, love and perseverance are the keys to change. Each child had found their own path, and they all shared a common goal: to help other children, to share the love and sacrifice they had received. It was from these children that Marcus realized that it wasn't just love that bound them together, but each person's ability to create change in the community. With the support and unity of his children, Marcus made the decision to establish the Marcus Foundation, not just to change the lives of children in Millbrook, but to spread love and acceptance everywhere. The organization's mission was to provide housing, education, and psychological support for disadvantaged children, especially those abandoned or from emotionally deprived families. The organization also helped families, particularly those with children like Marcus, to find integration, acceptance, and growth. Marcus didn't do this alone. His children, with their passions and desire to make a difference, had become his strongest collaborators. Emma, along with Marcus, led the organization, developing educational programs and connecting with the community. Lily organized art activities for children, helping them develop creativity and find joy in life. Ben and Charlie managed community projects, creating opportunities for young people to become self-sufficient. Mia wrote books and worked with psychological experts to help children and families overcome mental struggles. And Sophie, although the youngest, was always the one who found the most creative solutions to help children struggling academically. Each family member was not only a participant in the organization, but also a living testament to what Marcus hoped to build: a family without racial divides, without considering pasts, but only love and acceptance. However, not everyone easily accepted this organization. In the early days, Marcus faced considerable opposition. The community still had many people who could not accept his family, and even more people who opposed the organization. They believed that an organization like this wouldn't last, that these children couldn't become valuable members of society. But for Marcus, that was not the issue. Each time he faced opposition, he would remember the early days when he brought the 6 children home. Love had helped them overcome, and now, that same love would help him and his children create a legacy, an organization that would help thousands of children without families, just as they once were. A year after establishing the Marcus Foundation, the organization had helped hundreds of children. Not only that, but it had also changed the town's perception. The suspicious glances were now replaced with admiration and respect. Families began participating in volunteer programs, and many people in the community started to open their hearts to acceptance of differences. The story of Marcus' family was no longer just the story of a unique family, but a story of resilience and determination that never gave up. Marcus and his children proved that love is not just an emotion, but an action, a determination, and an indestructible strength. They had created a legacy not just for themselves, but for thousands of other families, so that love and acceptance could be the ties that bind people together, regardless of race or past. The legacy Marcus left behind wasn't material, but the healed hearts, changed lives, and children who had found a home. For Marcus, this was the greatest success he could ever achieve. And in his heart, he knew that his family, along with the Marcus Foundation, would continue to spread these beautiful values to every corner of the world. When Marcus looked into the eyes of his children, he didn't just see the kids he had raised. He saw a part of himself. These children were not only the result of a decision made out of love, but also living embodiments of a family that was never limited by race, past, or any barrier. This family, from the difficult early days to the time they grew strong and built a great legacy, proved one simple yet profound truth. Family is not born from blood, but from love. It was a winter afternoon when the gentle sunlight streamed through the windows and illuminated the family photos on the wall. Marcus sat in the living room, listening to the laughter that echoed through the house, like a gentle melody in the peaceful space. Emma, Lily, Ben, Charlie, Mia, and Sophie were gathered together, sharing stories, joyful memories, and cherished moments. The children no longer felt different. They were no longer children in a strange family. They had become children in a real family, where love was the only thing that mattered. Marcus looked at his children and realized that, even though the world outside still had much to change, within this home, they had created their own world, a world where there was no place for discrimination, prejudice, or hatred. This was their family, a family without limits, without division, and without barriers. The Marcus Foundation, the organization they had founded, had now become a symbol not only for Millbrook, but for the entire country. It not only helped disadvantaged children, but it also conveyed a powerful message of love and acceptance. No longer were there skeptical glances, uncomfortable questions, or doubts about the existence of such a special family. Marcus' family had set an example for thousands of other families, showing that differences are only a part of the bigger picture, and that love is the most important thing that makes a family. Emma, now a grown woman and an expert in sociology, shared in a live interview that her family was not a family in the way society defines it, but a family made by their own decisions and love. We are not a perfect family, but it is unconditional love, patience, and determination that have helped us overcome everything, Emma said, her voice confident and proud. Lily, now an art lecturer, organized an exhibition titled Limitless Love to share her family's story through works of art. She explained that her paintings not only reflected the beauty of love within the family, but also the truth that love can change everything, can blur all distinctions, and break down all barriers. We, as different people, have found that our differences are what make us strong, Lily shared. Ben and Charlie, the sons whom Marcus had always worried about fitting into society, had now become role models for young people. They not only ran a community cafe, but also co-founded a youth program to help local children, teaching them about self-confidence and self-love. It's not because we're special that we can do these things. It's because this family taught us that love is the only thing that makes people strong, Ben shared. Mia, the book-loving girl, had become a famous author. She wrote books not only about personal growth, but also about how a family can overcome challenges. My family is unlike any other I've ever known, but it's my family that has taught me that there are no limits in love, Mia shared during her book launch. Sophie, the youngest yet the strongest motivator of the family, had become a spokesperson for charities helping children in need. She shared, "I've learned from my dad that family isn't where you're born, but where you're loved." For Marcus, what he had done, what he had created, was not a personal act, but a grand message. His family was not only proof of the power of love, but also a testament to the change that love can bring. The legacy Marcus left behind wasn't material, but the intangible values he had planted in the hearts of his children, in the community, and in the world. Marcus' family life was no longer just a story about difference, but a story of empathy, acceptance, and love. This family showed that real love has no boundaries, not racial, not color, and most importantly, not past. Love is the only thing necessary to build a family, a future, and a legacy. From Marcus' family, we receive a simple yet profound message. Love has no limits. And family, no matter its form, is enough as long as there is love.